Hi everyone, I'm Jennifer Park, and this is Turning Leaf Field Notes, Episode 5, When Everyone Else Thinks You're Living the Dream. Welcome back to Turning Leaf Field Notes. A few months ago, a client was telling me a story about how her family said she was finally living the dream. She felt like she should be, but just that morning had been feeling something closer to grief than relaxation. Not about anything specific, just a low, quiet unease about who she was becoming and whether she was doing this whole transition to retirement right. It happened again a week later, smaller and easier to miss. A neighbor waved her down in the driveway and said, "Must be nice, sleeping in every day now." She said she laughed and said something about finally catching up on all her TV shows. She didn't tell her neighbor that she'd actually been up since 5 that morning, not sleeping at all, turning over a decision about a volunteer opportunity that had nothing to do with rest. That's the strange part of the season that almost no one warns you about. From the outside, it looks like the reward, the finish line, the thing you worked 30 years to earn. And it is those things, but it can also, at the exact same time, be disorienting, lonely, and sometimes sad. And there's no socially acceptable way to say both of those things in the same sentence. So most women don't. They say living the dream, and they mean it, and they also don't. Both can be true. I want to give you some language for this today because I think it explains why so many capable, grateful, genuinely excited women still feel strangely alone in this transition, even when they're surrounded by people who love them and are thrilled for them. There's a concept in grief research called disenfranchised grief. It describes grief that isn't openly acknowledged or socially validated, usually because the loss doesn't fit a category other people recognize as worth grieving. We have social scripts for the losses everyone agrees are real: a death, a divorce, a diagnosis. People know what to say. They bring a token of concern. They ask how you're doing and actually wait for the answer. But when the loss doesn't fit a recognized shape, when it's wrapped inside something that's supposed to be a celebration, the grief gets disenfranchised. Not because it's smaller, because nobody around you has been handed the script for how to witness it. Retirement is as disenfranchised as it gets. You choose it often, but people are popping champagne and you sometimes feel something heavier underneath the celebration. It's easy to conclude that you must be ungrateful or broken or doing this wrong when really you're just grieving something real inside a moment that only has room culturally for joy. Here's what compounds it. Psychologist Nancy Schlossberg, who has spent much of her career studying how people move through transitions, found that how well someone copes with a major life change depends on 4 things she called the 4 S's: the situation itself, your sense of self, your strategies for coping, and your support. Every one of those matters, but support is the one that trips people up here, because support isn't just presence. It's whether the people around you can actually see and hold the specific thing you're going through. You may have abundant support in the sense that people love you, they check in on you, they invite you places, but if everyone around you is only equipped to celebrate your retirement and nobody is equipped to witness the harder, quieter parts of it, you can be fully surrounded and still profoundly unsupported in exactly the way you need most. I don't say any of this to make you suspicious of the people celebrating you. Most of them mean it with their whole heart, and the celebration is real, and it matters. I say this so that if you felt guilty for not feeling as thrilled as everyone expects you to be, you can let go of that guilt. You're not failing to appreciate a gift. You're carrying 2 true things at once, and one of them simply doesn't have a toast written for it. I've had to practice saying the quieter version out loud, even when it feels risky. Not to everyone, just to 1 or 2 people I trust to hold truths without trying to fix either one of them. The first time I said, "I'm excited, and I'm also a little scared. I won't know who I am on the other side of this," out loud to my husband. I expected him to try to talk me out of the fear or give me a pep talk. He didn't. He just said, "That makes sense." That was it. That was the whole thing I needed in that moment, and it surprised me how much lighter I felt afterward, simply because someone let both things be true at once. If you're standing in this exact spot where everyone else sees the dream and you're privately carrying something more complicated, I want you to sit with this question. What would it feel like to tell one trusted person the full, unfiltered truth about how this transition actually feels instead of the version you've been offering at parties and in the driveway? You don't have to announce it to everyone. You don't have to correct the sentiment. Just find one person who can hold both truths, the gratitude and the grief, without needing you to pick one. Don't rush to have that conversation today. Just notice who came to mind when I asked the question. That's information, and it's enough for now. If this resonates, join me again here on After the Classroom. We'll talk about the emotional, psychological, and practical sides of this season, and together learn how to stop performing a single, simple, tidy story about retirement and start telling the whole truth of it. If you'd like to keep the conversation going, I've created a free private Facebook community, also called After the Classroom, where educators walk with one another through this transition. I'll put the link below. I hope to see you there. Until then, I'll see you in the next field note.